The chainsaw roared, with chips flying like angry sparks. Wait, what? Yes. Karen was inside her neighbor's yard, hacking away at a tree that wasn't hers. Not asking permission, not even pretending to care, just stomping into someone else's property. Hands gripping the handle, jaw clenched, eyes wild. God, is she serious right now? Someone gasped from across the street, clutching their phone as if it were a lifeline. The neighborhood had seen Karen pull some stunts before, but this was next level. The tree, a 50-year-old maple that shaded the whole corner of the block, cracked under her assault. Every snap of the branches echoed like bones breaking. The air smelled of sawdust and gasoline. The sound alone made people wince. But no one dared to walk into that mess. Not yet. Because Karen wasn't just a normal neighbor. She was the kind of self-appointed homeowners association warrior who thought she owned everything within sight. Her motto, if I don't like it, I'll change it. Never mind legality. Never mind respect. She didn't even knock on doors anymore. She barged, cut, screamed, demanded. And now, here she was, trespassing, destroying, acting like the world owed her every tree, every fence, every blade of grass. Across the street, Michael, the tree's actual owner, was frozen on his porch, coffee mug slipping from his hand, porcelain shattered against the steps. But he didn't even flinch. He just stared, stunned. This can't be real, he muttered, almost to himself. But it was. Every furious pull of Karen's chainsaw screamed reality. Neighbors whispered. Some filmed. Some bit their nails. Was anyone going to stop her? Then Michael finally moved. Slow. Calm. Too calm. He walked down his steps, across his lawn and right up to the property line. His voice cut through the engine's roar. Karen, turn that off. She didn't. Instead, she yanked harder, cutting deeper. Wood shrieked. Branches groaned. Michael's jaw twitched. He wasn't a man who liked fights. He worked in tech, kept to himself, paid his dues. But this wasn't a leaf blower at 7A. Or another petty homeowners association letter. This was destruction. Violation. His yard. His tree. His peace. You're trespassing, he said louder, fists tight. Stop before you regret it. Karen finally killed the engine. Silence fell. Sawdust floated in the air like falling snow. She turned, smirked, wiped sweat from her forehead. Regret it? Oh please. She scoffed, loud enough for the cameras pointed her way. This tree was an eyesore. It was blocking my view. I'm doing the neighborhood a favor. Gasped. Someone whispered. She didn't just say that. Michael's face darkened. His voice dropped, quiet but sharp. That tree is on my property. You stepped over my fence. That's a crime. Karen laughed. A cold, cutting sound. Crime. Don't be dramatic. What jury would convict me for trimming a nuisance? You should be thanking me. That was the moment the tide shifted. Because every neighbor watching, every phone recording, caught her arrogance in full display. No apology. No remorse. Just entitlement. Michael didn't raise his voice. He didn't threaten. He only said 4 words, clear enough to echo off every mailbox and driveway. You'll regret this, Karen. And oh, how she would. The videos hit Facebook before Michael even called the cops. By noon, they were on TikTok, stitched with commentary, dramatic music, even memes. Karen versus Tree. One title read. Another, HOA Gone Mad, Chainsaw Edition. Comments exploded. This woman's insane. Trespassing and destruction of property. Open and shut. Where does she get the audacity? By evening, Karen was viral. Her face, sweaty and smirking, plastered across millions of screens. Neighbors she didn't even know messaged Michael. "We saw the video. Finally. Someone caught her." But the internet wasn't her only problem. Police showed up before sunset. Karen tried to play innocent at first. She was just trimming, just helping out. No harm intended. But when the officers asked whose yard she was standing in when she revved that chainsaw, when they saw the very real fence she stepped over, her story cracked like the branches she'd hacked. "Ma'am," the officer said flatly, "this is trespassing. You can't just cross onto someone else's property and destroy their tree." Karen's voice pitched higher. "But it was ugly. Dangerous. I was protecting the neighborhood." Protecting. No one bought it. Not even her fellow homeowners association board members, who'd shown up by then, shaking their heads. One of them, Lydia, a usually quiet woman, spoke up. Her words sliced deeper than any saw. "Karen, we told you last month. That tree was inspected. It was healthy. It wasn't a danger. You went rogue." The silence that followed was almost painful. Karen blinked. Her mouth opened. Shut. For once. No words came. Michael finally spoke again. His tone low. Almost weary. "You wanted attention, Karen. Now you've got it." The officers handed her a citation right there. Trespassing. Property damage. Civil liability looming like thunderclouds. She sputtered. Tried to argue. But every time she raised her voice, someone else lifted their phone higher. And that was the twist. Karen wasn't just facing legal trouble. She was facing the internet. Her downfall wasn't in courtrooms alone. It was in comment sections, reaction videos, live streams dissecting her every sneer and excuse. By the next morning, hashtags trended. Chainsaw Karen, Tree Butcher, HOA from Hell. She became a symbol of entitlement gone too far. The funniest part, strangers started digging. And what they found made everything worse. Turns out, Karen wasn't exactly the law-abiding protector of the community she pretended to be. Public records. Easy to find. And oh, did people share them? Old Homeowners Association fines. Complaints against her. Even a small claims court case from years back where she trespassed on someone else's lawn. Every skeleton rattled out of her closet in full HD. She tried to clap back online. Of course. Posted a rant on Facebook about ungrateful neighbors and fake news. But the comments shredded her. "Lady, we literally saw the video. You can't chainsaw your way into someone else's yard and call it community service. Own it, Karen. You messed up." By day 3, she stopped posting. She couldn't take the heat. Couldn't take the screenshots. The memes. The constant flood of shame. And the Homeowners Association. They cut ties quick. Emergency meeting. Quick vote. Bye-bye Karen from the board. Even her allies couldn't save her. She was too toxic. Too exposed. Michael didn't celebrate, though. He just replanted. Called an arborist. Watched as the stump was cleared and a new sapling put in its place. Quiet. Steady justice. But the neighborhood celebrated. Kids chalked "free shade" on the sidewalk. Neighbors who never spoke before laughed together about the memes. People drove by just to take pictures. Karen stayed inside. Curtains drawn. Lawn unkempt. A ghost in the house that once screamed at every rule. Her downfall wasn't a fiery explosion. It was slow. Humiliating. Suffocating. Because nothing cuts deeper than being exposed. Nothing. And that's the bitter end. Karen thought she could trespass. Butcher. Dominate. Instead, she was the one cut down. So tell me, if you were Michael, would you have let her walk away? Or would you, too, have pressed charges and watched karma do its work? Thank you for listening. Don't forget to like, comment your thoughts about this wild story and subscribe to the channel for more. You ever have one of those days where you knew trouble was brewing the second you stepped outside? Yeah, that was me, on a sweltering Saturday morning, sweat already clinging to my neck, coffee cup in hand, when I spotted Karen. Not just any Karen, our HOA Karen, standing under a bright red canopy at the park market, grinning like a cat that swallowed the canary. I froze mid-step. My brain instantly screamed, oh no, she didn't. But she did. She was running a vendor booth smack in the middle of our HOA park, selling jars, powders, and little glass vials with handwritten labels. The kind of stuff that made you instinctively squint and wonder, is that even legal? Morning, she called out, voice syrupy but laced with that fake sweetness only she could pull off. Come try some of my herbal blends, completely natural. Natural, my foot. I could smell the sharp, acrid tang from where I stood. And you know what? It wasn't just the smell. It was the audacity. She wasn't just bending the HOA rules, she was snapping them clean in half. Our bylaws were crystal clear. No unlicensed sales on HOA property. I almost turned and walked away, thinking, not my circus, not my monkeys. But then I saw her exchange cash with a guy in a denim jacket, slipping something into a plain brown paper bag. The man glanced over his shoulder before walking off. My stomach tightened. This wasn't just homegrown tea leaves. I walked up slowly, each step heavy with that mix of curiosity and you've got to be kidding me frustration. Karen, do you have a permit for this? Her smile faltered for a split second, then returned brighter, faker. Oh, don't be ridiculous. I've got it all handled. HOA doesn't need to be involved. Wrong answer. I pulled out my phone, snapping a few photos as discreetly as possible. Click, click, click. The way her face tightened with each sound was almost satisfying. She knew I had her. You're not allowed to sell here without. She cut me off with a laugh, loud enough to turn a few heads. Oh, please. You think you know the rules better than I do? I practically wrote them when I was on the board. That's when I noticed a folded document taped to her booth. An HOA vendor authorization form, complete with our HOA logo and a signature. My signature. My breath caught. Karen, where did you get that? She tilted her head. Oh, it's just standard paperwork. People trust me. Except I knew instantly it was forged. The font was wrong, the logo was stretched, and the signature? Sloppy, shaky, and mine. That's when my pulse started to pound in my ears. That's fraud, Karen. Her eyes went cold. You wouldn't dare. Oh, I would, I whispered. But she doubled down. You want to make this a big deal? Fine. I'll have my lawyer send you a letter for harassment. Oh, she was good. Twisting the narrative, planting seeds of doubt. My gut said she'd pulled the stunt before and gotten away with it. Still, I walked away, my hands trembling, already dialing our HOA president. Except halfway through explaining, I heard it shouts from the other side of the market. 2 uniformed officers, weaving through the crowd, radios crackling. And then, ma'am, we need to speak with you about what you're selling. Karen froze mid-transaction. Excuse me? This is harassment. I'm a pillar of this community. But the officers weren't buying it. They opened one of her boxes, pulling out several unlabeled amber bottles. One officer's brow furrowed. The other stepped back, muttering into his radio. What's going on? A vendor nearby whispered to me. Controlled substances? I murmured, my voice barely audible. This isn't about herbal tea anymore. Karen's voice pitched higher, sharp enough to cut glass. Those are just samples. For stress relief. The taller officer held up a vial to the sunlight, the liquid catching a faint shimmer. Ma'am, this is not a dietary supplement, and selling it without a license, that's a felony. The market went dead silent. You could hear the cicadas buzzing in the distance, the faint hiss of a soda can opening 3 booths over. My skin prickled. Karen tried one last time. I have paperwork. She grabbed the forged form, waving it wildly. The officer took one look and snorted. This isn't a valid document. The logo's pixelated, and the signature's a scanned image. Ma'am, did you forge this? Her mouth opened, closed, opened again. The shorter officer stepped forward. You're under arrest for possession and distribution of controlled substances, as well as fraud. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Someone actually clapped. But Karen didn't go quietly. This is a setup. She pointed right at me. You told them to come after me. The officer calmly slid the cuffs over her wrists. Ma'am, anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. As they led her away, she locked eyes with me. There was no gratitude, no shame, just pure, seething hate. I thought that was the end. But oh no. 2 days later, I got a letter shoved under my door. No envelope, just crumpled paper with blocky, angry handwriting. You'll regret this. My stomach dropped. But here's the thing, Karen underestimated me. She didn't know I'd already emailed every photo and video to the HOA board, the police department, and the county vendor licensing office. And when her lawyer tried to send a cease and desist, claiming I'd defamed her, my attorney laughed and pointed straight to the arrest record, which had already hit the local paper. And that's when the real twist hit. During the investigation, the police discovered she'd been selling the same substances online, using our HOA's park address as her business location for legitimacy. That mianto yesht dragged all of us into legal hot water. The HOA had to hire counsel to prove we weren't involved. At the emergency board meeting, our president slammed the table so hard his coffee sloshed over. We're suing her for damages. Every single dime we've had to spend clearing our name, you'll get it back in court. I leaned back, arms crossed, feeling that strange mix of vindication and exhaustion. Good. She forged my name. That's personal. The lawyer nodded. We'll include that in the filing. Forgery is going to sink her. But just when I thought it couldn't get worse for her, it did. Turns out one of the officers who arrested her, his sister had bought something from Karen's booth last month and ended up in the ER. That meant criminal charges with an actual victim. Karen's smugness evaporated in court. Gone was the tailored blouse and fake pearls. She showed up in a wrinkled sweater, hair limp, eyes darting around the room like a cornered animal. When the judge read the charges, fraud, possession, distribution, forgery, she actually whimpered. And yet she still tried to play the victim. Your Honor, this is all a misunderstanding. My neighbor, she turned toward me, her voice shaking with rage, has been harassing me for months. The judge didn't even blink. Ms. Thompson, we have video evidence, financial records, and a forged document bearing your handwriting. This is not harassment. This is criminal conduct. She deflated in her seat. The trial dragged on for weeks. Every day, new layers of Karen's schemes peeled back like rotten wallpaper. Bank statements showing thousands in unreported cash deposits. Screenshots of online listings under fake names. And, my personal favorite, the forensic handwriting expert confirming without a doubt that the signature on that vendor permit was forged. The jury didn't take long. Guilty on all counts. When the verdict was read, Karen's face went pale, then blotchy red. She clenched her jaw like she was chewing on broken glass. The judge didn't stop there. He handed down 6 months in county jail, 3 years probation, and an order to pay over $18,000 in restitution. Part of that money, straight to our HOA, covering every dime we'd spent on lawyers, filings, and damage control. I'll never forget the look she shot me as the bailiff let her out in cuffs. It wasn't remorse, it was the same venom she'd carried since day one. But it didn't matter anymore. She'd lost the power she thought she could bully the neighborhood with. Afterward, the HOA held a community meeting. People actually applauded when the president announced the outcome. Let this be a warning, he said, voice firm. We will not tolerate anyone jeopardizing our community for personal gain, especially through fraud. I stood in the back, hands in my pockets, trying not to smile too broadly. Justice wasn't always quick, but it was thorough. Over the next month, life in the neighborhood started to feel lighter. No more unsolicited emails from Karen about new HOA rules. No more passive-aggressive notes on windshields. Her booth, her boxes, her red canopy gone. But the lawsuit had left its mark. I still got the occasional side eye from people who hadn't known the full story. those who'd bought into her victim act. That's the thing about these situations. Someone always clings to their own version of the truth. One afternoon, I was trimming my hedges when a woman I barely knew walked up, clutching her purse. "Hey, I just wanted to say I'm sorry for believing her. I didn't realize what she'd done to you, or to all of us." I shrugged, but inside, her words felt like the final piece clicking into place. "It's over now," I told her. "The lawsuit made sure of that." She nodded, glancing toward the park where kids were playing under the summer sun. "Good. Feels like the neighborhood can breathe again." And she was right. It wasn't just about winning, it was about making sure people like Karen knew there were consequences. That the rules weren't just suggestions. That the law, when it finally caught up, hit hard. I walked home that day with the smallest, quietest smile. Not because I'd ruined her, but because she'd ruined herself. And all I'd done was make sure the truth got its day in court. If you enjoyed this wild HOA lawsuit story and want more true neighborhood drama, subscribe to my YouTube channel so you don't miss the next one. They cut our power during an ice storm. On purpose. To save a few bucks on their HOA bill, and I swear to God, it nearly killed a kid and blew half their yard sky high. It started with a low hum, then a pop. Not loud at first. Just enough to make your ears twitch like something was off in the air. You know? I was out back trying to thaw a water line with my propane torch when I noticed the porch light flicker then go out. A full blackout. Right in the middle of the worst winter storm we'd seen in years. Wind howling like it had teeth, snow coming in sideways. That kind of cold that makes your bones feel hollow. And I wasn't the only one. Whole block went dark. But here's the thing, only our side of the neighborhood. Just the ones who hadn't complied with some new energy-saving HOA mandate. A pilot program, they called it. You ever hear of a pilot program that involves two middle-aged sisters in matching Patagonia vests sneaking around at night with bolt cutters and headlamps? Let me back up a second. The Karen sisters Angela and Darlene had taken over the HOA like it was a damn political coup. Their big mission? Slash heating costs. Cut emissions. Look good in the local paper, maybe win some Green Neighborhood of the Year award. Problem is, their idea of conservation meant cutting off outdoor gas heaters, banning emergency generators, and get this, installing lockboxes around thermostats in shared properties. Which was illegal. But nobody wanted to push them. Not after what happened to the Parker family's garage. And their boat. Whole thing just vanished after they spoke up at a board meeting. So yeah, people were scared. But I wasn't. My sister-in-law has lupus. Cold weather flares it up real bad. So we had two heaters running 24/7 electric upstairs. Gas backup on the porch just in case. And guess what? That little propane unit is what saved our butts that night and almost turned their front yard into a crater. It was around 11:30 p.m. when I saw them. Two figures moving down the side alley between houses, bundled up like Arctic ninjas. One had a wire cutter. The other held a clipboard. I kid you not, in a blizzard. With a clipboard. I recognized them even through the storm, Angela's square posture and Darlene's puffy parka with that awful neon scarf she always wore like a sash of entitlement. They were going panel to panel, yanking fuses, flipping breakers on people's private property like it was a game. That's when I heard the boom. Not just a pop, this was boom. A dull, violent whump that rattled our window panes and lit the snowbank behind their fence in a flash of orange. I bolted to the front yard just in time to see Darlene on the ground, screaming her hands over her ears. Angela was flat on her butt, covered in soot and holding what used to be a lockbox that had apparently gone nuclear. Smoke was pouring out of their side yard like a dragon exhaling shame and fiberglass. The gas unit they tampered with? Not mine. It was the Harisa's next door. Their disabled son needs constant heat regulation. That backup heater had been modified to self-ignite during outages. Karen's sisters didn't know that. They thought they were disabling a luxury, not a life-saving device. And instead of asking or reading the very clear warning label, they clipped the main line, caused a pressure buildup, and boom. The fire department arrived in under 6 minutes. I gave them everything. The footage from my Ring camera, the old maintenance logs, even the HOA emails where the sisters bragged about reclaiming energy zones with guerrilla conservation tactics. Yeah. Those words were actually in the emails.
Jack đã nói.
The smoke hadn't even cleared when Angela started yelling. It was a malfunction. A malfunction, not our fault. Like shouting the word loud enough could erase the scorch marks on their own damn lawn. Firefighters weren't buying it. Neither was Officer Landry, the cop who showed up second, still dusted with road salt and looking like he'd been pulled out of bed mid-dream. You could tell the minute he clocked the two of them in their designer snow boots and matching Save the Planet. Not the people beanies, he already had a migraine. Let me get this straight, he said, voice dry as burnt toast. You two were out here in an active snowstorm disabling gas heaters. By hand. Angela puffed up like a possum caught in a toaster oven. We had full HOA approval. Yeah. Landry raised an eyebrow. And did the Harises approve you cutting power to their disabled son's emergency unit? 'Cause I've got his medical waiver right here. He held up his phone, already pulling up documents emailed from the fire captain on scene. And this one's stamped by the city. That heater's legally required. So unless your clipboard outranks a state permit. The silence was brutal. Meanwhile, Darlene was still curled up like a croissant on the curb, muttering. It wasn't supposed to explode. Angela said it wouldn't explode, over and over like a toddler who just saw Santa fall off the roof. Let me tell you something, watching two HOA tyrants come face to face with actual accountability, that's something I'd pay admission to see again. Especially when Angela tried to pivot into a full sob story. We didn't know. We thought it was just decorative. They didn't label it correctly. That's when I stepped forward, holding up my phone with the video zoomed in on the bright red decal that read, Caution. Emergency Medical Heating Unit. Do not tamper. Didn't label it, huh? I said, barely containing the smirk. You walked past that label twice while checking your clipboard. The neighbors were starting to gather by then, most wrapped in blankets or still in pajamas. Old Mr. Delaney from the corner house shouted, They cut my line too. I've got frost on my walls. I'm 86 and got arthritis in both knees. By the time the tow truck came to drag off what was left of their scorched Range Rover, which caught some shrapnel when the unit blew, the entire block was outside. But here's where it gets juicier. Turns out this wasn't a one-night operation. Officer Landry had barely scratched the surface when he found out the Karen sisters had cut power to at least 14 homes over the past month. One of them was a rental that housed a single mom and her baby. Both ended up in the ER the week before from hypothermia. The mom thought it was a power grid failure. It wasn't. The HOA email logs, which the fire department subpoenaed that same night, showed Angela and Darlene coordinating silent disconnection sweeps. Actual lists of homes. And next to some of the names, notes like chronic late fee offender or loud dog. They were targeting people, punishing them with cold. One neighbor, a young teacher named Maya, stepped forward with tears in her eyes and told the crowd her father had died of pneumonia the week prior. I thought it was just the weather, she whispered. But now I'm not so sure. It hit everyone like a gut punch. That's when Landry pulled out his radio and asked for backup. Yeah, we're gonna need another unit down here. And notify the city inspector, we might have multiple felony charges pending. Angela finally shut up after that. She just sat on the curb next to Darlene, snow sticking to her eyelashes, mascara bleeding down like war paint. The clipboard, still clutched in her white-knuckled grip like it might save her. Here's the kicker, though the HOA tried to deny all of it the next day. Released some PR garbage about unfortunate accidents and an overzealous initiative taken out of context. But someone not saying who had already emailed the entire neighborhood the bodycam footage, ring videos, and scanned email logs. By noon, it was on the local news. By 6 p.m., it was trending on Twitter under the hashtag HOA Heaters from Hell. The Karen sisters resigned before dinner. Not just from the board, they packed their bags and left town. Rumor has it they moved in with their cousin in Florida. Fitting. But the most poetic part? The Harris family, the ones with the disabled son, got a full home retrofit paid for by a GoFundMe that raised over $80,000 in 3 days. City Council got involved too, pushing new ordinances that required all HOAs to submit energy enforcement actions to a third-party oversight board. No more rogue thermostat patrols. No more ninja sabotage missions. Just peace. And heat. So yeah, they tried to freeze us out. But in the end, they lit a fire they couldn't control. What do you think? Should those two face jail time for what they did? Or was public shame enough? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and hey, if justice with a side of propane sounds good to you, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Thanks for sticking around. I hadn't even finished tying the last rope when it happened. My boat, my pride and joy, was hooked up to a tow truck like it was some abandoned junk. Can you imagine? I turned my head, blinked twice, and there it was. My fishing boat being dragged away from the marina by orders of none other than Karen from the Homeowners Association. What kind of person calls a tow truck on a boat that's literally docked where it belongs? She stood there with that smug, paper-thin smile plastered across her face, clutching her clipboard like it was a weapon of divine authority. Violation, she said, with this nasal, drawn-out tone that could curdle milk. My fists clenched. I could hear my own blood rushing in my ears. Violation? Of what? I paid my slip fees on time. Every month. My registration was current. My boat wasn't blocking anyone. Wasn't leaking oil. Wasn't loud. Nothing. Karen, I said through gritted teeth. You have no jurisdiction here. But she just tilted her chin like she was some queen presiding over peasants. HOA bylaws clearly state. Oh God, if I had $1 for every time she started with that line. I snapped. This isn't your neighborhood street. This is a marina. You don't control the water. And she just smirked, lifted her oversized sunglasses and said, We'll see what the board says after I file my report. And that's when it hit me. She wasn't just trying to flex her petty power. She wanted me humiliated. She wanted everyone at the marina to see me lose. My boat being towed away in broad daylight. That was her victory lap. People stopped mid-step, whispering, watching like it was some sick parade. And Karen, she was basking in it, practically glowing with self-righteousness. I felt my throat tighten. God, I wanted to scream. I wanted to rip that clipboard out of her hand and fling it into the water. But I just stood there, breath uneven, watching the truck haul my boat off down the road. My boat, my weekends, my escape, gone in the hands of a woman who thought her homeowners association badge made her captain of the entire coastline. But fate has a twisted sense of humor. Because not even 10 minutes later, the rumble of another engine filled the air. This time, it wasn't a tow truck. It was the Coast Guard cutter, pulling into the marina, fast and official. Sirens wailed, sharp and piercing, bouncing off the docks and metal railings. Everyone turned their heads. Karen, too. Her sunglasses slid down her nose. She looked confused, then nervous. The Coast Guard officers stepped off with this no-nonsense stride, scanning the rows of slips, and then, like bloodhounds, they went straight for Karen's boat. Her prized white and gold motor yacht, sitting like a polished trophy in the water. Owner present. One officer barked. Karen puffed herself up. That would be me. And I'll have you know. She didn't even finish before another officer cut her off. Ma'am, your vessel has been flagged for illegal modifications and unregistered fuel storage. Step aside. You could have heard a pin drop. Karen's face went pale, then red. Then this mottled mix like a storm was crashing inside her. Excuse me, she screeched. That's my property. You can't just... But she froze when the officer pulled out the notice. Loud, crisp paper crackling in the breeze. Coast Guard directive. Your vessel is being impounded effective immediately. I swear I felt the air shift. People who had just watched my humiliation 10 minutes earlier were now turning their heads. Wide-eyed, whispering, their gazes bouncing from Karen's furious face to the officers securing her yacht. Wait. Stop. You can't tow my boat. I'm on the Homeowners Association board. She shrieked. And oh, The irony of those words. She thought her title meant something here, on federal waters. The officer barely glanced at her. Ma'am, step back. Interfering with Coast Guard operations is a federal offense. Her arms flailed. Her voice cracked. This is harassment. Do you know who I am? And then, God help me, I laughed. Not loud, not cruel, but this low, broken chuckle that bubbled up like a release valve on a boiler about to explode. People glanced at me. Some even smirked. And Karen, she heard me. She spun on her heels, pointing a finger in my face. You did this. You reported me. Her accusation cracked through the air like a whip. My chest tightened, but I held her gaze. No, Karen, I said softly. With this calm I didn't even know I had left. You did this. All on your own. The officers were already untying her yacht. Their movements sharp and practiced. The engine of the Coast Guard cutter roared to life, echoing across the marina. They clipped lines, secured her vessel, and with one last order, they hauled Karen's pride and joy right out of the dock. Her boat disappeared across the waves, her screams trailing uselessly into the wind. It was poetic, almost cinematic. Her yacht vanishing into the horizon under Coast Guard custody, while mine sat miles away in some tow yard because of her petty stunt. The crowd thinned, people shaking their heads, whispering karma under their breath. Karen crumpled. I'd never seen her so small. Her clipboard hung useless at her side, papers slipping into the water. She muttered curses, then sobbed, into her manicured hands. But you know what? I didn't feel sorry for her. Not one bit. Because she'd orchestrated my humiliation, weaponized rules, abused her so-called authority, and the universe had just handed her a taste of her own medicine. Still, the story didn't end there, because Karen wasn't the type to accept defeat. 2 days later, I got an envelope shoved under my door. Inside, a formal notice from the Homeowners Association, claiming I owed thousands in fines for unsanctioned maritime activity. I laughed so hard I nearly choked on my coffee. Maritime activity. What was this? Pirates of the Caribbean. She'd actually convinced the board to try and fine me for docking a boat in a marina that wasn't even Homeowners Association property. I called my lawyer. He nearly fell out of his chair laughing too. This is gold, he said, tapping the papers. If she pushes this, she's opening herself up to a lawsuit she won't walk away from. And oh, did she push it? Karen doubled down. She paraded around the neighborhood claiming I was some illegal boat squatter. Whatever that means. She posted on Facebook. She tried to shame me at community meetings. But the more she flailed, the more people saw her for what she was. A desperate woman clinging to her crumbling power. The twist. Her boat. The one the Coast Guard hauled away. Turns out, she'd been siphoning fuel illegally to save money, and her custom modifications violated half a dozen safety laws. She wasn't just facing fines. She was staring down federal charges. By the time my boat was released back to me, shiny and untouched, Karen's yacht was still locked up. She was drowning in legal bills. Her Homeowners Association influence slipping through her fingers. People she used to command started avoiding her. Some even whispered about recalling her from the board. And me, I stood on my deck one evening, sipping a cold beer, the waves lapping against my hull. The sunset burned gold across the water, and for the first time in weeks, I breathed easy, because justice doesn't always come when you demand it. Sometimes, it comes roaring in on a cutter with sirens blaring, and it takes exactly what was never really hers to keep. Karen had wanted to humiliate me, strip me of pride, control the narrative. But the sea has its own rules. And that day,
The Sea.
So, if you ever find yourself staring down an Homeowners Association Karen with her clipboard of doom, remember my story. Remember the sound of those sirens. The sight of her yacht being dragged out to sea and the bitter taste of her downfall. Because sometimes, you don't have to fight fire with fire. Sometimes, the tide turns on its own, and it leaves Karen gasping on the dock, clutching nothing but empty hands. And I swear, I'll never forget the look on her face. So hey, if you enjoyed this wild ride of karma, revenge, and one unforgettable lawsuit-worthy twist, make sure to subscribe to my channel for more stories just like this.